Hello everyone and welcome back to Animation Pilgrimage, the show where Tennille and I take a look at every single theatrically released animated film in chronological order. Now, that first part, or the middle part, the theatrically released part. So last week I said that we were going to be watching The Wizard of Oz from Toho of Japan. And then we watched the movie and you made a discovery.
Yeah, turns out that it wasn't released to theaters.
No, I made an oopsie whoopsie when making the list.
It was released directly to VHS. That's gonna have to be something we really keep an eye out for now.
Yeah, because VHS, beta disc, the other one.
Sure, yeah.
VHS is the one that sticks around, but there are other
early forms of these recordings. Yeah.
Home video.
Home video.
Yes, that exist. I do still want to say thank you, OK Scale, for finding that movie for us.
So now that we've addressed the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Funny.
We're here talking about a big one today.
No, yeah, instead we're going to be watching The Plague Dogs.
It came up as a surprise for all of you.
Nepenthe Productions, England, and a little bit from the USA.
Yes. So, Whitney, this is the one. This is like the one movie, the reason I really wanted to start Animation Pilgrimage was to make you watch this movie with me.
Over 5 years ago, this was the goal for you.
The long con has finally paid off.
Well, I've watched it.
Yeah, you've watched it, and what did you think of it?
I thought it was not as bad as I thought it'd be.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like
we've been building up to it for a really long time.
Yeah, you had already shown me the worst scenes.
Yeah.
Which scared me off from wanting to watch the rest of the film, but the rest of the film was not as bad as those scenes, so I had already seen the worst things the movie had to offer, and I also feel like in the last 5 years, through watching Animation Pilgrimage and my own
consumption of media.
My own consumption of media outside of that. It has made me more jaded and accustomed to dark things. So I don't feel like this really affected me in any way.
Too bad.
Yeah.
I will say...
Now, if these were cats,
yeah,
that would be so much worse.
Yeah, you don't have a personal connection to dogs.
I have zero connection to dogs.
Because you've never had a dog.
Nope.
Never grew up with a dog. Never really wanted a dog.
Nope.
So...
Kind of don't like dogs.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate dogs, but I prefer not dogs. I'd rather have a snake or a tarantula.
Okay. Well, we don't need to go into your whole personal interests here.
Maybe a gerbil.
Okay. Well, anyway. Why would you pick a gerbil over a dog? Anyway.
Because I can hold a gerbil.
You can hold dogs. But small. Or even big dogs. They'll be lap dogs. They'll just decide. As someone who has had many a dog and many personal connections with dogs, this film does hit me harder. And I will say that for anyone who is personally upset by viewing animal cruelty of any kind,
this is not a movie for you.
This is rough because this film covers, basically it's like a whole campaign against like
animal testing,
vivisection, that kind of thing, which was a fairly new concept introduced to the public in like the late 60s, 70s. So when the book was written, because this is based on a book by Richard Adams, and then this movie was produced, it's probably already been like a thing talked about. Yeah. But I think really putting it in here and having the visuals and everything really makes it stand out to people more. I know that this is a movie that really hits home to a lot of people who have watched it. And even Richard Adams in the book says that, like, while all of the testing of animals that he describes in the book aren't things that would have happened all in one testing facility, they are all based on real animal tests that were being done.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yay! So yeah, just a general warning for this review, we will be talking about testing on animals and some level of animal cruelty.
Mm-hmm.
There is some death.
A lot of death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just that's your warning for us going into this review.
If you are faint of heart, do not go into this one unprepared. Yeah. Do you want to get into the plot synopsis?
Sure. Our two main characters are Snitter and Ralph, and they are two different dogs that...
Rolf.
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 Rolf?
Rolf.
It's R-O-W-F.
Rolf.
Rolf. Whatever. They're two dogs
Yes.
that are being tested on in a facility in England.
Mm-hmm. One is a terrier and the other one is a mixed Labrador.
Okay. So Snitter is the terrier, and he has had brain surgery done to him to mess with his perception of reality.
Which is fucked up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes it so he is in constant pain from his head, and he...
Buzzing.
Buzzing, and like he can't tell what's real and what's not sometimes.
Before he came into the facility, his owner got hit by a car, saving him.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he was sold to the testing facility.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's already traumatized.
Yeah.
And just, like, reliving this terrible moment.
Yeah. So we also have Ralph,
Uh-huh.
who is put through endurance tests. Specifically, how long can he tread water until he drowns?
Yeah.
And they do this to him over and over again, and whenever he drowns, they just resuscitate him and then run the test again a few days later or something.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I
That's
mean,
how the movie starts,
that's the
watching
opening.
this dog paddle in the water until it drowns.
Well, and in this small little tank with, like, bars over the top of
There's
it.
no way for him to get out of the water.
Yeah, like, it feels very claustrophobic. This movie has fantastic cinematography, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fantastic animation that really captures...
It's the realism.
Yeah. Like, it's...
This movie is very grounded, very realistic. The only unrealistic parts are the fact that the dogs talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just all barks and whines and stuff like that.
Yeah, but even then, the way the dog's personality comes through is extremely realistic for a dog. The way they talk about things is very, like, from a dog's understanding of the world. Like, Snitter had a master, and so, like, he knows that there are good humans out there somewhere
But
that
Ralph,
aren't all like this. But Rolf's never experienced that.
yeah, he does not trust humans, full stop.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
So one night, after testing, Ralph's cage is not locked properly.
Yep.
So Snitter leads him and Ralph out of the facility and they escape.
Get out through the incinerator,
Yeah.
which always just makes me like... And
Yeah.
you can see, like, the animal bones and stuff in there,
Yeah.
and...
It's like there's a freaking incinerator for animals that die from testing being done on them.
And that's the important thing to establish about what's so messed up about this animal testing in particular, is that it is not being done for any particular reason. It is testing for testing's sake.
Yeah, it's scientists just fucking around with animals to see what they can do to them and push their limits and stuff like that.
And you see them as they walk through the facility, like
A bunch of
monkeys being kept, like, in constraints, or just being kept in, like, these
cylinders and stuff, and rats in cages and like
that are much too small, like just big enough for them to turn around in, basically.
Yeah, so it's like, yes, this is obviously very bad and horrible.
Right.
this movie's a little heavy-handed with its message.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
It's kind of needed.
That was the point.
That was the point. It's completely the point of the movie, for sure.
Right. Anyway, they managed to get out.
They get out. And so now they're just in the countryside, in the fells. Mm-hmm. And after a few days of kind of just starving out in the wild, they decide they're going to be wild animals because any interactions with humans doesn't go well because Ralph does not trust humans.
Right, or know how to act around them.
Mm-hmm. So it makes them not like him. Mm-hmm. They eat a sheep.
Yep, they start killing sheep.
They kill a sheep. After their second sheep kill, the Todd, who is a fox, finds them and is like, "You guys suck at being wild animals. Let me teach you how to do it, and let me have some of your food when you do it."
Right, because you've got the brawn.
Yeah.
I've got the brains.
And Snitter's here too.
Yeah. But, I mean, Snitter is just as much a part of their, like, killing attempts as
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Rolf and the Todd.
So they manage to kill a couple more sheep. And this gets the humans, specifically the farmers, a little pissed off, so they go out trying to hunt them unsuccessfully. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the movie will every now and again, like, give a date and then day X, how many days the dogs have been out.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, like, the first couple weeks, it's mostly just them wandering around in the fells, unprovoked. The farmers finally start getting after them, like, a week and a half into it. The testing facility has realized they've gotten a couple of dogs loose, but they don't tell anyone.
Because they don't want the backlash of it.
Yeah, they don't want the backlash to know that they lost a couple dogs.
And now those dogs are killing farmers' sheep. Mm-hmm. And they also know that, like, animal conservationists and stuff
already didn't like it.
Already don't like them there. They are in the middle of, like, a national park.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, it's supposed to protect animals.
Yeah.
And, like, if they find out what kind of testing they've been doing specifically on these dogs, it'll look really bad.
Yeah.
What I also want to point out here is that I really love how the story, like, how slow paced the story is. There's literally points where even in the middle of a kind of a tense situation, the dogs will just, like, lay down and they're like, I'm tired. Mm-hmm. And, like, again, that is very much capturing the behavior of these dogs. But also what I appreciate is that watching this from a human perspective, you see these dogs and you want them to succeed and find a better life, but you also kind of know from the start that there's no fucking way that's gonna happen. And especially after they kill a sheep, you're like, God damn it, it's over for these dogs.
Yep.
Like, because there's just not a happy ending there.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. They're just dogs. Mm-hmm. They're just dogs doing dog things.
After a couple of weeks, there's been multiple sightings of these dogs, and the scientists do admit that, yes, we lost a couple dogs. Finally. Meanwhile, a random human sees Snitter out by himself, and he's like, "Hey, come here, doggy. Come here.
Man.
Tweet, 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 tweet. Come on." And so Snitter's like, "Nice human, I'll go interact with him," and shoots him with his own gun. Killing him.
Yeah, the man has his gun, like, propped up kind of against his shoulder, and as Snitter jumps up, his paw hits the trigger and kills this man.
This man is not practicing gun safety in any way whatsoever, but he's dead now because of a dog.
And it's not just distressing for distressing's sake. It furthers Snitter's belief that every human he comes across will die. Mm-hmm. Which just, like, throws him into
further
his despair
and delusions
even more.
And stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. At this point, obviously, this is bad. Many sheep have been killed. A person has been killed.
And they can tell that the dog was involved because there's muddy footprints on the man.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, one of the scientists accidentally slips information to a reporter, but he didn't think she was a reporter because she's a woman.
That was your first mistake, buddy.
So she gets information out of him about the testing facility and what they're doing there. And she also gets information that they've been testing bubonic plague on rats in that testing facility, which, from the first part of the movie, we know the dogs never interacted with that room. Mm-hmm. Like, they even note that it's like, smells like death in there.
Yes.
And so they don't go in there, even though there's no way for them to get in.
Yeah.
But they never interacted with it. But now there's a rumor that these dogs are infected with the bubonic plague.
Right.
So nobody wants to interact with the dogs, and
thus they are now the plague dogs.
Yes. They are now known as the plague dogs. The scientists hire a hunter discreetly to come out, track down, and kill these dogs. He finds them and is going to shoot them, but the Todd surprises him, and the man falls off a cliff and dies.
To his death, yeah. And at this point in the movie, it's now the middle of winter, and the dogs
Are starving
and can't get any food because sheep have been moved and it's winter.
So now they're suddenly presented with a dead body right in front of them, so they eat him.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you thought, well, maybe something like, maybe someone will find these dogs and take them away and, like, the sheep killing will be forgiven or whatever, this is the point where you're just like, no.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it, no.
So a search and rescue helicopter spots an eaten human carcass. The government gets involved. They send military forces out. And they're like, you're going to search this area until you find these dogs and you will kill them. Mm-hmm. They need to be put down, especially if they potentially have the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
We can't let the Black Plague get out again.
Right.
So the army sent in. The Todd tries to distract the army men so the dogs can get away. The Todd is killed.
Yeah.
Which is sad. The dogs make it to a beach. And out across the water, Snitter sees their island where they can go and be free. And the military is marching across the sand towards the dogs. And they jump into the water and swim out into the foggy, freezing cold winter British Sea. And the credits roll, and we never find out if they make it anywhere. Probably not.
Well, and I mean, God, the ending is so heartbreaking on so many levels. It's what makes it so perfectly tragic, is that Snitter sees this island where he thinks that he and Rolf can be free of man, and this means that Rolf has to experience water again.
Yeah, which is, he hates water because
of what he's been put through.
Because whenever he's tested, it was literally, he swims until he drowns.
Right.
On like a daily basis. So whenever they interact with water,
he's like
in
shying
the movie,
away from it.
He shies away from it. He does anything he can to just like jump over it or avoid it in any way. Mm-hmm. So this is like forcing him to get back in the water where he definitely doesn't want to be.
Right. And he is, you know, it gets to the point where they're out in the water and Snitter's like, Rolf, I can't do this anymore. And so it's Rolf who has to be like, no, Snitter, I think I see it. I think I see our island. And then the fog just kind of rolls over them. And you get the end credit song, which is Time and Tide. And that song makes me cry like a baby on a good day. Mm-hmm. But then you add this whole situation to it, and oh my God, it like immediately brings tears to my eyes.
Yeah, you're tearing up a little bit.
I am just thinking about it because it's so beautifully sad. If you can't tell, I really, really love this movie. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a movie for everyone, and I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means. But I think it's so beautiful in its imperfections, I love, like, this might sound strange to some people, but I love how sad and realistic this is. And I'm not someone who normally goes seeking that out.
Mm-hmm.
But this just strikes the perfect balance of despair, hopelessness, and yet still having some kind of, like, hope to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I can appreciate about this movie.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel cynical. It just feels very straightforward. And you know, as soon as these dogs get out, that, like,
nothing's gonna go good for them.
nothing's gonna go good for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first time I watched this movie, I was probably around, like, 12, 13. And, like most people, I just found it while browsing YouTube. I had watched Watership Down right before it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I watched Felidae in my recommendeds, like, right after watching this.
You know, back when YouTube still had movies just on it.
Right. Illegally.
Well-known large movies on it.
Well, I wouldn't say that this was necessarily well-known large.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get more into the production of this film in just a little bit. But I want to talk about my personal history with this film. You know, out of the 3 movies, when I stopped watching this one, I was like, well, damn, that was sad and kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
was my takeaway when I was, you know, a preteen. But out of those 3 movies, Watership Down, Felidae, and Plague Dogs, this is the one that has stuck with me the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Easily. And, like, I really enjoy Watership Down for what it is. I have less nice things to say about Felidae, but we'll get to that later.
I think for a lot of people, this movie is going to be a lot more impactful and traumatizing because it is animals.
Yes.
Compared to this happening to humans or anything like that. Yeah. At least here in America,
Mm-hmm.
we are very desensitized to violence towards people.
Yeah.
But violence towards animals, less so. And so it's a lot more shocking and hurtful to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have multiple friends that they're like, if cats die or are harmed in this movie or thing, I will not engage.
Right.
Like, I just will full stop not watch that.
Right. And that's part of the reason why I think The Plague Dogs just resonates with me more, is because I feel like it has a more personal message than the other films I talked about. I think that The Plague Dogs hits on something where, while yes, you see that this is about animal testing and animal cruelty, it's also extremely easy to see this as a metaphor of just systems failing people.
Mm-hmm.
And Rolf even has, like, a moment in the film where he tells Snitter, like, I'm a good dog. Why is the world so cruel?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think that sums it up so well.
Because I don't have the personal attachment to dogs specifically, this didn't make me cry. It was like, I can definitely see how impactful and sad this movie is, but I appreciate this movie more on like an objective sense.
Right.
As compared to an emotional sense.
Uh-huh.
I have experienced movies that make me feel terrible and shitty on a emotional sense.
Right.
But those always involve humans.
Right.
So I'm sure I'll talk about that more when we get to other things.
Yeah.
Like Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh,
specifically. Yeah.
And that's not even too far from now. I think
No,
that's
it's
like
not.
85.
Yeah, I mean, Ghibli is working on it. They're working on their films right now.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming up soonish.
All right. So that's enough of me crying about this movie. If you think you can handle it, I absolutely recommend this film. I think it's worth a watch. However, please do not traumatize yourself out of curiosity if you don't think you're ready for it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just my general warning. Just be smart.
For sure.
Anyway, this was directed by Martin Rosen, same director as Watership Down, a lot of the same production staff as Watership Down. However, it also had animation that was done in California. Animation was done on this movie between 79 and 1982. The animators in the UK are animators such as Arthur Humberstone, George Jackson, Alan Simpson, and Colin White, who all worked on Watership Down. And some of the animators from California were Phil Robinson, Brad Bird. Did you notice his name in the credits?
No, but I scanned Wikipedia and saw that.
Oh, you tricky. Yeah, Brad Bird animated on this film.
Who would later go on to be known for things like The Incredibles.
The Iron Giant, Ratatouille. Yep.
Like, definitely know him more as a director than an animator.
Yeah. But this is some of his early animation work. And another animator working on this film was Retta Scott. Do you happen to remember who this is? This is going to be throwback way, way back.
Is this Redagore?
No.
Okay, then no, I have no idea who this is.
No, Retta Scott was the first Disney female animator who worked on Bambi, animating the vicious dog attack.
Oh, okay, cool.
Uh-huh.
All right.
This is one of the last films she worked on before she died.
Oh.
In 1990.
Well, she got to keep animating dogs.
She got to keep animating dogs, yeah. But she got to do, like, some animation for this film, and I think that is awesome. I love seeing her come back and, like, doing something like animating dogs. She's so well known for doing the vicious dog attack in Bambi. I think that's so cool, and she would have been in like her 70s when she was animating for this film, and she was also teaching some of the like Renaissance animators at that time at the studio in California that was working with Martin Rosen on this film. So I think that's so cool.
That's very cool.
Obviously, the book was written by Richard Adams, but did you know the book had a different ending? A happier ending.
Okay.
In the book's ending, Snitter and Rolf are pulled from the sea, cleared of bubonic plague, and then reunited with Snitter's lost master.
Who is dead in the movie.
Yes, it pulls a complete 180 happy ending because the book's original manuscript was essentially what we see in the movie.
Oh, okay. And they're like, that's too dark.
Yeah, and his publisher was like, you know, this is really sad. What if we didn't? And then so for the film, it ends on the sadder note, although I will say at the end of the film, when it is showing credits, the fog does clear away and you see an island. And that's supposed to be like, oh look, it is a happy ending. But like, come on guys.
They probably drowned.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all but confirmed.
And the credits is specifically playing a song that is a hymn about dying and going to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
The island is symbolic of them dying and living on their island
in
heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Goldcrest Films invested £900,000 to the production of this film, and it only earned back £300,000.
So, a massive failure.
Yeah. A big problem was that they didn't have a distributor right away starting production of the film. So they were having trouble finding
someone that wanted to actually release this film for them.
Right. Also, they were having so much trouble with it because the film was so sad.
Fair. Yeah.
And people were just like, no, I don't want to show this, actually.
It's like, but what if we didn't show the sad dog movie to children? Because, of course, this would be shown to children because it's animated.
And when this film first came out, it was unrated because that wasn't really a thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in the US, it was resubmitted for a rating and got a PG-13 rating.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it when I was like 12, 13, and I appreciated it and didn't feel traumatized by it then. So, as I'm sure I would have if I watched this when I was like
6.
Yeah, 7.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been like, oh God, what is life?
Do you have any notes about the edits to this movie?
I do. I'm glad you brought that up. So there is actually 2 cuts of this film, and I actually specifically made sure to buy a region-locked version of the film so that we could watch the original cut of the film, which is 103 minutes long, versus the more common cut of the film that is distributed around everywhere.
The US and everywhere else other than England.
That is 86 minutes long. So that's like nearly 20 minutes cut from the film.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the cuts are just like
shortening scenes of dogs walking around with humans talking over it.
Yeah.
Which is most of the movie.
Yeah. Like, as much as I love this film, don't expect to be excited and wowed most of the time. Other than the visuals being fantastic. The visuals are gorgeous.
Yes.
But
we can talk more about that in a little bit, but go on.
But like most of the movie is dogs walking around and humans talking over it. And like it can be kind of boring, but like that's the point. But anyway, the biggest difference between these 2 cuts, and you might have caught it if you're familiar with this film while we were talking about the synopsis.
Mm-hmm.
But the longer cut of the film actually has a scene that was deemed too shocking, and so it was cut from later editions, and that is the scene of the helicopter going over the valley, finding the hunter all disemboweled, and the dogs have eaten its carcass.
Mm-hmm.
And like they show the gory bits.
Yeah. Num num.
Num num.
Presumably in the American release, the shorter release, they see the guy die. You see Ralph walk over to him, and then that's all you see.
Mm-hmm.
Because right after that is the scene where the helicopter comes in and you see the body.
Right.
And that just isn't shown, presumably.
Yeah, and it's a long lead up with that scene, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the helicopter's following their tracks for quite a while.
Uh-huh.
And then they're like, oh my God, what is that? Jesus!
Uh-huh. It's a good 15, 30 seconds.
Oh, at least, yeah.
Of them leading up to it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's most of the production notes I have about this. Do you want to just talk about, like,
the movie? The movie is very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
The art direction that they decide to go with the film is it's a mix of lineless and colored lines specifically, as compared to just like black lines on everything. The backgrounds are beautiful watercolor, or maybe not watercolor, but like
they feel like colored pencil.
They're very
illustrative.
Yeah, detailed illustrative backgrounds. The dogs still feel like they fit into this universe most of the time. They don't feel like they just are slapped on top of it horribly. But like they very, very clearly did a lot of research on how dogs move and how they like emote in realistic ways. Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, the dogs just kind of wander around sniffing things and then sit down, and then they stand up and walk around a little bit more. And, like, there's no reason for them to do any of that, but, like, it's a very realistic dog motion and movement, and it's beautifully done. Mm-hmm. And it is still kind of rough because it's a movie with not a super duper huge budget.
Right.
And stuff like that. But, like, it feels good for how rough it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I also want to call special attention to John Hurt, who plays Snitter in this film. Mm-hmm. We've actually seen John Hurt play...
Isn't he in Watership Down?
He's in Watership Down.
Is he the prophetic rabbit?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. He sounded very familiar.
Hazel. Yeah. Or
He's
no,
got a good...
Fiverr.
Yeah. He's got a good voice for going crazy.
Uh-huh. But he was also in Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. Mm. And he'll also play a character in The Black Cauldron coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's been in just a ton of movies around this time for us.
Fun.
But yeah, he does a great job playing Snitter in this. And that's another thing you can nitpick about this film, is that the audio balancing makes it a little difficult to hear what characters are saying.
Yeah, if you can watch this with subtitles, I would suggest it, especially if you are not used to listening to heavy British country dialect.
Yeah.
Because...
especially the Todd.
Yeah, the Todd...
speaks like, oh, wee bonny lass, and stuff like that.
Yeah. The Todd and most of the humans, like the farmers and stuff.
Yeah.
You really have to pay attention to what they're saying. And like you said, the audio balancing, not super great. Oftentimes, it feels like the dialogue is quieter than the music. Mm-hmm. Or on the same balance, which is not what you want. You want to be able to hear the dialogue over the other audio going on.
Right. But the delivery of lines is so natural, especially, you know, when talking about like Rolf and Snitter and the Todd. Like, you really feel that connection through the voice acting alone, mm-hmm. because the dogs aren't allowed to emote
in a human way.
In a human way, right. They're emoting in a dog way. So if you recognize dog body language, that's one thing. But also the vocal performances give a lot to these characters as well.
This is the style of natural dialogue that Ralph Bakshi wishes he could do.
Dude, yes, absolutely.
Because it's an actual written dialogue. Mm-hmm. Written well, so it sounds natural. Not two people on a soundstage ad-libbing and screaming at each other.
Yeah. Well, and all this dialogue still has a purpose to it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It has a purpose to show the characterization, show what these characters are thinking, and let us into their mindset. Mm-hmm. We get to hear about Snitter's worries about, well, where have all the people gone? Did the Whitecoats, the people who run the lab, like, they got rid of all the buildings because Snitter used to live in town. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you get to hear Rolf mumble and grumble about, like, oh,
my leg hurts.
My leg hurts. And, like, I think you might be crazy, Snitter.
Mm-hmm. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's good.
It's a real good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's very sad, and obviously be prepared for that if you do want to watch this.
We have described the worst scenes of the film for you.
Oh, for sure.
So, if you think you can handle visualizing that,
mm-hmm.
you know.
All right.
Yeah. That was The Plague Dogs.
Yeah, so join us back here next time as we move on to, I was going to say a happier film, but like, I guess technically it's happier.
I mean, most films are happier than Plague Dogs.
All right. Well, we're going to be watching The Last Unicorn.
It certainly is another big milestone one.
Rankin Bass.
The Last Unicorn. See you then, everybody.
I don't